In this lesson, we are going to talk about place value to the thousandths place. Please make sure that you have your notes set up in 2 columns and that you have the yellow objective written at the top. You also need to take note that the thousandths place is the 3rd place value spot after the decimal. So you can see here in this chart, we have our decimal in the middle, and then 1, 2, 3 places after, we see the thousandths place. Now, this red number here, 472 and 42 thousandths, has been placed into the place value chart for you to see. Does this 4 represent 4, 40, 400, 4,000? Think about that. This 4 represents 400. Notice how this 7 is in the tens place. That would be like having 7 tens rods. So our 7 represents 70. Not 7, not 700, but 70. So as I'm looking at this red number, I'm starting to think of some sentence frames that we might be able to use to talk about place value and what the numbers represent. I want you to write this in your notebooks. If I can get my typing tool here. There we go. I'm just going to make it a little smaller. We're going to stick with the red example for now. The 4 is in the hundreds place. We'll say therefore it represents 400. Oops. There we go. Let's see if I can move this over. Oh, that spins it. Cool. We're just going to move it though. The 4 is in the hundreds place, therefore it represents 400. We can make another one because we talked about that 7. The 7 is in the tens place, therefore it represents 70. Can you see the sentence frame that we're starting to form here? Please make sure that you write this next sentence frame down in your notes. It's very important, so put a box around it or a star next to it. I'll even put it in a different color after this. The blank is in the blank place. Therefore, it represents blank. Please make sure that you write that down. That is the sentence frame that we will use to discuss place value. Once you have that written down, I'd like for you to try practicing writing the 2 yellow problems out using our sentence frame. You can also create the place value chart and write in the table. So you might start out with this, and then you can continue filling it in. But you also need to have a sentence frame written for both yellow problems. Okay, now that you've done the 2 yellow problems, your next task is to get with a partner and complete the 4 green problems here. You do not need to write it down. I just need you to verbally explain to each other what each of the numbers represent. That means you're going through each number. 4, 0, 6, 8, 5, and so on and so on and so on. Once you're done, go ahead and return to your seat to continue watching the video. All right, so you should be back at your seat now, completely done with that first slide on the place value chart and using the sentence frames. You'll see in the next few problems that we're going to use a model. Looks exactly like this here. Before we even start using this model, it's important to consider why we even use tools in mathematics. So, at your table, you are going to do an avid strategy to think about this tool. This strategy is called a stand, share, sit. So you will all stand up at your table. You will each share your thoughts, and as soon as you have shared your thought, you may sit back down. If you're sitting, you're still listening. You're still part of that discussion, and you can still respond to people. Here's your question. Why might a model be useful when solving place value problems? Go ahead and do your stand, share, sit. After you've done your stand, share, sit, I want you to watch this modeling on this yellow problem. After the yellow problem, we'll have an orange and a blue. This chart shows 1,000 boxes. And when I say 1,000, we're talking about these little ones. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 1,000 of those. The question says, how many are shaded yellow? Well, this might be an instance where I think I could go ahead and count all of them, but that won't necessarily help me on problems that are like this, but that are more difficult. So I want to figure out, how can I find a strategy that will help me for every problem like this? Well, let's look at what we see. Then we're going to look at what we say and what we write. That might be a good organizational system to put into your notes. We see 200 of the boxes are shaded. Since they're grouped, we could go ahead and make an array and find the multiplication answers to get this number 200 a lot quicker than counting. We see 200 of the 1,000 boxes are shaded yellow. So we say 200 thousandths of the boxes are shaded. Oh, okay, so that means each of these boxes is called a thousandth. That's a thousandth, that's a thousandth, that's a thousandth, even the ones that are unshaded. Thousandth, thousandth, thousandth. 200 thousandths are shaded. So we'd write 0.200. I can't just say 0.2 because that place value spot ends in the tenths place. I can't say 0.20 because that place value spot ends in the hundredths place. Oh, but what happens when I add one more spot? Think about that. Hopefully, you realized that the name of the place value spot is the thousandths place because it's the third digit after the decimal, and we have to represent those place value spots. We have to hold the place with a number. All right, so now we're on to the orange problem, and then you'll also do the blue problem. So I'm just gonna stop on these for a few seconds, so you're gonna have to find them and pause to complete the problems. You're going to answer the question, how many of the boxes are shaded orange? And in your notes, I'd like you to have a we see, we say, we write, just like in that yellow problem. You may need to go back to the yellow problem to pause to look at our model. And here's your blue problem. Oh, purple. Here's one final problem. How many are shaded white? This is very, very light to see. Do you notice these right here? They're light blue. Go ahead and solve the orange, blue, and white problems. And as soon as you're done, I would like you to take your work, pause the video, and get into a circle on the floor over by the bookcase. Wait for all of the students to be there. And once everyone is there, you are going to discuss these problems as a team to come to a consensus on the answers. You need to make sure of a couple things. Everyone in the collaborative circle needs to talk at least 2 times, and all people must have a clear understanding of these problems. So if anyone has any questions, we need to address them. Go ahead and grab some talking chips if that would help. And you guys are in charge for this, so you have about 7 minutes to make it happen. When you're done, return to your seat and we will move on to the last section of this. Thank you. Okay, so for our last part of this video on reviewing place value to the thousandths, I'd like you to go ahead and check out how I'm using word form here to represent the decimal. Instead of saying 5.714, we say 5 and 714 thousandths. Can you see something wrong with this example? Hopefully you noticed that there's an extra and in here. I'd like for you to write out each of these and have a partner check your work. If they see that maybe you added an extra and, have them cross it out, just like I did here. When you're done, go ahead and check in with me and we will move on.